Here's Corin.
Morning. It's Chadsky's turn to be the interviewer. I'm the interviewee on this one. You.
Oh, it's good. He calls it an interview, but it's more of interrogation. What's up, buddy?
Man, just you know.
Yeah.
You know how it is. You've been on the road here with me every day. We've been in the grind.
I like to think I have, but it's been more of a dissociated road trip. I've been off in La La Land, so.
Well, that's part of what being on a road trip, I guess, is about too. Is letting go of the old life, the old way, and embracing something genuinely new every day.
I agree with him on that, and I'd like to know what y'all think about that too.
That's true.
So, we've been on the road for a little over a week.
Yeah.
And I want to know, and I'm sure these guys want to know, do you see it going like you planned?
Well, for the most part, I'd say about 80% is close to what we had initially, you and I had initially talked about. With some shifts, here and there with shooting style was obviously an issue because of the time constraints and uploading everything and then rendering it and getting it through the editing thing, through the software and getting everything put together. It just, that alone was going to set us back from being able to release the videos by 3 to 6 days possibly, depending, and that would have stacked up, and soon we wouldn't have been able to release hardly any interviews except maybe one every 3 or 4 days, which I just don't think would have been, from what we talked about, originally in setting this whole thing up, I don't think it would have been as impactful as being able to get the interviews done, get them put together and get them out within a day or so, or even the same day of the interview. It gives it a more of a present time kind of a feel, and I feel, and I wanted those folks out there who are following our adventure,
right,
to be able to be with us in present time as much as possible as we go through, so I think we've kind of found a bit of a rhythm now. Things are getting a little easier. Obviously we had the constraints with we have some financial constraints, but the GoFundMe has been incredible. You guys are absolutely out of this world. I mean, I'm beside myself. I'm beside myself so much that I changed my shorts for you.
He did, though. He really did.
Just for this interview, I was like, I can't be in those same shorts again. So coming up with the idea of going to a campsite like this KOA here outside of Shreveport and setting up shop for a couple of days, even if we have to do 3 days, to be able to get the maximum amount of people through, that to me sounds, because we talked about flash parties as well, trying to set up a little, but this is the ultimate flash party right here at the campground. We got, tables and chairs and setups, we can barbecue out here, whatever.
Just for you guys.
Yeah. You guys can bring some cocktails if you want, and hang out, and everybody can hang out here. We can get to know each other. If you're concerned about, the social distancing and the masks and all of that, you're happy to have you around and wear one, or talk from a safe distance if you prefer, but
about respect.
But we welcome all walks of life here, and we really want to get a maximum amount of interviews in. I mean, I think we got 12 interviews in 7 days.
I think it was actually
like
14. I think, or a little over 14 interviews.
I can't remember exactly how many it was, but I mean, we in numerically speaking, I mean, I think that we have really, really gone past the mark that was initially set of maybe 1 or 2 interviews a day.
And I think we have. And me being somewhat of a YouTube connoisseur, I haven't seen anybody put something out like that outside of interviewing strangers.
Right.
I mean, we're not interviewing strangers, obviously. We set it up with them.
Yeah.
And it's something that, if they were strangers, it wouldn't have the same feel as this feels. And
True.
so I want to come into that.
Yeah, it's not like Louder or Crowder, like Crowder on the street, or
Right,
Man on the Street interviews where you're catching people off guard. And
Much love for Crowder, by the way.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
He's a comedic genius.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Mark Dice is pretty damn funny too.
I like to.
But we're not here to talk
No,
about
no,
them.
no. Not here to talk about them, but it's something that I think you also bring to this trip. Is something that, everybody brings something unique, and I would say it's more than just one unique thing that you're bringing to America. And when I say America, I mean everyone who is following this show,
Yeah.
who is following us on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you're following us. You're our America for the present moment, and I would say that you bring probably a nice baker's dozen of unique qualities. So
That's awesome. And then as far as just like the interviews have gone, I mean, they've gone way better than I could have ever imagined, to be honest.
Right.
The quality of character that everyone we've interviewed so far has shown us, and the mutual admiration for one another has been top notch. But the openness, I think, has been the biggest one, because obviously we're not trying to do Sean Atwood style interviews, where we get really into the dark and dirty nitty gritty
right.
of certain
Yeah.
things. This is more about what is the that arc, that roller coaster of an arc that we all have in our lives, and finding in that some similarities between ourselves, and by orchestrating the interviews in such a way as for them not to be politically motivated,
Right.
anything like that.
We want to stay away from politics and things like that
as
much as possible.
Yeah,
That's not
for what
this
Love
is
America
about.
Tour is about. It's
yeah.
not about politics,
Not
exactly.
at all.
It's about bringing people together, coming together, getting to know one another, asking the simple questions and the direct questions about life. When like, when do you sit down with somebody and behave like people behave on Twitter in real life? You just don't.
It doesn't happen.
And if you do, ew, I mean, what a character that would be.
I know in acting they have the fourth wall. I don't know what wall you would call that for Twitter, or just the Twitterverse or Facebookverse, whatever you want to call it. But it seems like there's a massive disconnect in regards to the way that people treat each other online and the way that they treat each other, in person or physically.
Yeah.
And in their each other's physical presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And something I've seen and I've noticed with what you do is there's no difference. You're nice, respectful. I won't say you don't have a filter, but you don't filter any part of your personality just because it doesn't change depending on who you're talking to or when you're talking to them.
Right.
So I think that's another one of those.
Well, I'm not going into a character,
exactly,
a caricature of myself for the interview segment, and then turning back into a totally different personality afterwards.
No, he's not, guys.
Which,
it's, what you see
is what you get, unfortunately, or fortunately.
Yeah. So.
But throughout the interviews, though, what I've really gotten out of it is the stark similarities in people's stories as far as the hardships and what it takes to overcome hardships and to come out of them on the other side either rosier than you were before, or at least not so damaged that you can't continue in life, and build yourself, some type of future. There's been people we've interviewed who've gone, like myself, gone from having a lot of money to having none, and then finding happiness in between.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And that was one thing I realized too, is that it seemed that one of the through lines too, it seemed that for the slightly older folks, it seems like many of them didn't have the parents who had to work as hard as our parents had to work in our generation, and so there was more time there. But also this idea that that your upbringing is going to be specific to the outcome of your life is a false narrative. There's people who had both parents the whole time, great lives, everything, and still went through the same type of struggles that the people who had broken homes went through, and some of them through harder struggles than those who had broken homes, even though their parents are still together and still love each other. So it goes to show that even if you're in a household that is well rounded and still together, the chances of running into ups and downs in life are just as prevalent as it is for those who see themselves as a downtrodden lower class.
Correct.
That's where I come out of, that upper lower class strata.
Right. Yeah.
And knowing that even if you're from that upper lower class strata, or lower class strata, or just lower class, whatever you want to call it, the class system is just a ridiculous idea
I don't.
Anyway.
It is a
But
ridiculous
I'm
idea.
using
But
I'm using the
you have
terminology so we get
context.
it.
You have to have
You have to have
context.
context.
Yeah.
So the thought that what I've got out of this is that the thought that impedes, especially when I was interviewing Corey, he's like, if I had known that I could be this successful at having a pool company, a pool cleaning company, a pool servicing company in my 20s, I would have done this 10 years ago, basically. And that's kind of the point, is that you don't have to be well educated, you don't have to go and have a great college experience and your bachelor's and master's degree and PhDs and all of this stuff to go out, create a business, get out there, hustle it, make it successful, and have a good life doing what it is you love to do.
You hear that, guys?
Yeah.
It's definitely not what the perception is now, according to the mainstream media or the commentators or the pundits. It's what you make out of it. It's your choices which will put into fruition your goals. And it's just all about closing gaps, and that's where I want to kind of segue into this. You closed a lot of gaps to get here.
Well, I opened up some too, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
But for me, I was just so tired of seeing the narrative on the news painting all Americans as these backwards, backwater, ignorant people.
Right.
And that hasn't been my personal experience growing up. Yes, I've met a few of them,
Right.
but if I weighed the amount of people I've met who are backwards, ignorant people against those I've met who are not, the scales would be so out of balance you wouldn't even see anything on the opposing side, mathematically speaking.
So you're saying that, I mean, and you traveled the world. So you're saying, America isn't, we're not deplorables, or we don't belong in a trash heap just because we don't go along with the narrative? I mean, you don't see that, or?
Well, that's just it. Is that in discovering about people's lives and who they are and what their character is like and the trials and tribulations they've been through, that shows to me the American character, the hard working, never stopping. You can believe in yourself as much as possible, and with that belief, you can stir people into action to get stuff done in life that in other places would be absolutely almost impossible to do on the scale that we can do it here. You certainly have a lot of other opportunities, but then when I'm over in Europe and I look at the taxation system over there,
Yeah.
it's just god awful. I mean, we complain about taxes here. You go over there, they're like in the 68, 72, higher percentage
Wow.
of, I mean, just crazy taxes.
Yeah.
And then you also have kind of just certain not so much cultural barriers, but you do have language barriers in Europe
Right.
between
Yeah.
countries. So let's say you want to become a famous actor in Germany, or in Europe. Well, if you're German and you don't speak French, don't speak Italian, don't speak Lithuanian, don't speak whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then how vast can your popularity spread as in the European Union as an actor?
Right.
It can't
It's,
spread
it's
that
completely
far.
different than
It's
it is
it's
here.
totally compartmentalized by state to state to state because of all the language barriers.
Right.
Whereas here in the U.S., each state, the primary language is English, and so me becoming an actor, and being as successful as I've been at different times in my
Yeah, with
life,
the Emmy nomination.
yeah, it would
100 credits.
yeah, it'd be absolutely impossible, to a certain degree, to achieve that anywhere else in the world but here. And that goes in all other areas of business and life. The opportunities in this country are just they're innumerable. If you come up with a good idea that somebody else hasn't come up with, or a way of doing something that's slightly different than how somebody else has done it, it's sort of like, we were talking about the paperclip versus the stapler. When they
Right.
invented the paperclip, they were probably like, there's no one that will ever invent anything better than this. This is the most incredible
Yeah.
thing in the world. Then someone came up with the stapler, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
like,
then the
wait a second.
What's this?
What's this? Yeah, you've ruined my
You've ruined my niche.
yes. So, so it's that kind of thinking, and that kind of action. And also, what I've noticed too is that, folks are not, the people I've interviewed, coming to points in their lives where they're at an absolute crossroads of losing everything, or having to completely reinvent themselves and start over brand new at some older age in their life. And
Right.
and this is a fearlessness, that I see in the people that I've been interviewing, even those who innately have some anxieties or stresses, like we all do. That the actual story they're telling proves that they've overcome even the fears that they might think that they still have.
Right.
They've
yeah.
already proved that those fears are obsolete when it comes to their actions, because
Right.
their actions have already said, yeah, that fear is there, but I've worked through the fear, and I've created something new and beneficial to my life with my actions, with my behavior, with my choices. So,
Right.
without making this an extended interview, I think that what I'm most excited about to come, after this experience in Texas, the wrap up from Texas, what I got out of that was that everybody's got a mirrored, parallel life to one another, regardless of what your politics or your religion or anything else may be. When that is set aside and made secondary to the human relationship, when you get to know the human relationship, all the rest falls to the wayside. It can be picked up, but at that point, if we can get along and we can see our commonalities, then the politics shouldn't even be this big of a deal.
I agree with you.
I mean, we've talked about that a bunch. I mean, it's absurd.
I
Politicians should be pencil pushers and paper shredders, and they should just be doing the most mundane, boring kind of work imaginable. And here they've become the all-powerful, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-being,
Yeah,
end and beginning of all things.
They've gone from extras to stars.
They've
and
gone from
it's-
extras to stars. The American people are supposed to be the stars of this show.
That's
the
right.
Politicians are supposed to be the extras, and they're supposed to be the craft service team, and they're supposed to be, part of the producing team.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But they're not supposed to be the writers, the directors, and the actors in the show.
That's right. I
You
can't.
know, the American people are supposed to be doing that job, and they're supposed to be listening to us when we tell them what it is we want to do and what we need done.
Right.
They're supposed to do it, and but they've turned the tables on us somehow, and now we apparently work for them, and now we apparently have to do everything they say instead of them doing everything we say.
Yeah.
it's a madhouse.
And I think that's why this tour is so important, because it really catches that nuance of we're the American people and this is our story.
That's right. And that is a great place to end it. We are the American people, and this is our story. Love America Tour. Thanks, Chad.
You're welcome.